My name is Carly, and this is how it all started, in a house too big for its warmth, and with a family that couldn't quite fit together right. I grew up in a city where the weather was as unpredictable as my mom's moods. I remember that morning, the clatter of dishes and the smell of burnt toast filling the air as Mom, Susan, moved around the kitchen. My stepdad, Richard, sat at the table, flipping through the newspaper, his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. "You need to eat quicker, Carly," Mom snapped as I slowly spread jam over my toast. "I don't have all morning." I kept my eyes on my plate, counting the seconds. Richard sighed. "Susan, she's just a child. Let her be." Mom muttered something under her breath, then turned her attention to me again. "And look at you, always so sloppy. Can't you at least try to look decent?" I glanced down at my shirt, noting a small stain I hadn't seen before. Before I could respond, the phone rang, cutting through the tension. Mom answered it with a huff, her voice sweetening as she realized who it was on the other end. "Oh, hi, Tom," she cooed into the receiver. "Yes, she's just finishing up her breakfast. No trouble at all." She shot me a look that said otherwise. When she hung up, she tossed the phone onto the counter. "Your father will pick you up in an hour. Make sure you're ready." "I don't want him coming to the door." "Why can't he come in?" I asked, my voice small. Mom's laugh was short and sharp. "Why? You want everyone to see the kind of man he is?" "No, thank you. I have a reputation to maintain." I knew what she meant. Dad lived in a rundown part of town, his life a far cry from the polished existence Mom had with Richard. He drove an old, beat-up car and wore clothes from discount stores, but none of that mattered to me. He was Dad. He was kind. The hour passed quickly, and soon I heard the honk outside. Grabbing my backpack, I headed for the door. "Remember what I said?" Mom called after me. "Directly to the car, Carly. No dawdling." Outside, Dad was leaning against his car, a smile lighting up his face when he saw me. "Hey, pumpkin, ready for a fun weekend?" I ran to him, his arms open wide for a hug. "Yeah, Dad." As we drove away, I glanced back to see Mom watching from the window. Her expression was unreadable, but I knew she was relieved to have me out of the house. The drive was filled with small talk about movies and books, and plans for the weekend. Dad always made things simple, easy to understand, and never made me feel like I was too much or too little. He just accepted me as I was, and it was in those moments that I felt like I could really breathe. Life in our house took a turn when Mom announced she was pregnant again. I was 10, old enough to understand that this might change things, but not old enough to predict just how much. The day she told us, the kitchen had the sharp scent of lemon cleaner and the window was open, letting in the chatter of the neighborhood. I was doing homework at the table when she said it, just like that, no lead-in. "I'm expecting a baby with Richard," she declared, her eyes shining. Richard was there, his hand on her shoulder, both of them looking like they'd won something big. Richard grinned, patting my head a bit awkwardly. "You're going to be a big sister, Carly." Mom was watching me closely, like she was waiting for something more. "Well, Carly? Aren't you excited? You'll have a little brother or sister." "Yeah, excited," I mumbled, but her stare made me nervous. She had this way of drilling into you with her eyes. Over the next few months, the house filled up with baby stuff, new furniture, clothes, and toys. Everything was shiny and expensive, the kind of stuff that never filled my own room. Mom's belly grew, and so did her obsession with the perfect family image she wanted to showcase. The day my sister Lily was born, I was at school. I found out when Richard picked me up, his face serious. "You've got a little sister now, Carly." Standing next to the crib, I felt clumsy and large. Lily was tiny, her face scrunched and red. I reached out, my finger lightly touching Lily's small hand. Her fingers curled around mine, and something tightened in my chest. "She's really cute," I admitted, a genuine smile breaking through. Mom watched us, her smile tight but approving. Just remember, Carly, babies take a lot of work. You'll need to help out and not make things harder. I nodded, used to her warnings. Life at home shifted dramatically. Lily's cries filled the nights, and my help was enlisted more often than not. Carly, grab the diapers. Carly, can you watch Lily while I shower? It was tiring, but it was also the most Mom had spoken to me in a long time. Yet, it wasn't the warm, sharing tasks I had imagined. It was orders barked between the wails and the little sleep. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, Lily's presence grew, as did the space she occupied in everyone's life but mine. My small corner room felt even smaller, my world reduced as hers expanded. I tried to find joy in it, in being the big sister, but often, it felt like I was just on the outskirts, looking in. Carly, don't be too loud. Carly, don't give her that, it's too small, she could choke. Carly, let's not bother your sister. Mom's constant instructions made it clear, I was the outsider in my own home, always stepping wrong, always too much or too little, never just right. When Mom told me I was moving in with Dad full-time, it didn't feel real. The news came out of nowhere on a cold Thursday evening. I was doing homework in my tiny room, the one that used to be a storage closet, before Lily came along. You're going to live with your father, Mom announced, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Her voice was flat, like she was talking about the weather, not changing my whole life. I looked up from my books, confused. What? Why? It's better this way. Richard and I can focus on Lily, and you, well, you need a change. She didn't even try to sound sorry. Does Dad even know about this? My voice cracked a bit. I wasn't sure if I was angry or scared, maybe both. He agrees. Thinks it's a good idea. She turned to leave, then stopped. Pack your things. He's picking you up tomorrow after school. The next day was a blur. Dad's car pulled up right after the final bell. I dragged my suitcase to the curb, feeling everyone's eyes on me. Dad jumped out to help, his face tight with worry. The drive to Dad's place was quiet at first. He kept glancing over, trying to read my face. You okay, Carly? I don't know, Dad. It's weird. Mom just kicked me out. Dad didn't answer right away. Look, it's tough, I know. But we'll make it work. You and me, okay? We're a team. Moving into Dad's apartment felt like stepping into another world. His place was small, cluttered with books and old furniture. There wasn't much room, and my room was actually the living room couch. That night, we sat at his tiny kitchen table, a pizza between us, trying to make plans. School's different here, but you'll adjust. You're tough, Carly. Tougher than you think. The first few months at my new school were rough. The hallways were battlegrounds, and words, sharper than knives, were often thrown my way. Hey, why you even here? Nobody needs another quiet mouse. Some would jeer as I walked by, my head down, my heart sinking a bit more each day. One evening, as I slumped on the couch staring blankly at a textbook, Dad came in from his late shift, looking as worn as I felt. He tossed his keys on the table and grabbed a couple of sodas from the fridge. He handed me one and sat down across, his brow furrowed with concern. Carly, we need to talk about college. I've been doing some numbers, and well, I can't cover it. Not without some help. His fingers drummed on the table, a nervous habit of his. So, what does that mean? I felt a cold wave of worry. It means there are a few ways this can go, he continued. First, you could work hard, get involved, and maybe land a scholarship. Or, you might have to work and study, which won't be easy. And, he hesitated, then added, there's always the option of not going at all. I shook my head immediately. No, I don't want that. I'm not giving up on school. The determination in my voice surprised even me. Dad nodded, looking relieved. I hoped you'd say that. So, think you can step it up? Maybe join some clubs, get your grades up? From that night, things began to change. I approached school with a new purpose. Avoiding wasn't an option anymore. I started showing up early, staying late, and getting involved wherever I could. It wasn't easy at first. The library became my refuge, the place where I could escape the whispers and focus on what really mattered. One afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins, the school librarian who had taken a quiet interest in my frequent visits, approached me. "You're here a lot, Carly. Ever thought about helping out with the school radio? We need someone to manage the broadcasts." I hesitated, the idea of putting myself out there was terrifying. But then, I remembered Dad's words and my promise to myself. "Sure, I can help out," I managed to say. "Great. There's a meeting after school today. You should come," Mrs. Jenkins said with a smile, and just like that, I was involved. Working with the school radio was nothing like I imagined. It gave me a voice, quite literally, and people started seeing me differently. "Hey, that was a cool segment yesterday," someone would say, and I'd nod, a small smile creeping up. I even surprised myself by running for a student council position. Standing in front of the school, delivering my campaign speech, was one of the scariest things I'd ever done. "I'm here because I believe we can all do better, together," I declared, my voice shaking less with each word. When I won the presidency, even if only for a few weeks, it felt like a victory not just for me, but for anyone who had ever felt underestimated. By the end of high school, my efforts paid off. I received a grant to study finance in college, a field I had grown passionate about thanks to all the budgeting I did with Dad at home. It was more than just an escape from my situation, it was a chance to redefine it. The night I got the acceptance letter, Dad and I celebrated with cheap takeout pizza. "I'm proud of you, Carly. You did it," Dad said, his eyes misty. Leaving for college was bittersweet. I was ready to start fresh yet again, but leaving Dad and our little cramped apartment tugged at my heart. As I packed my bags, he came over with an old radio. "For your new dorm," he said, setting it beside my suitcase. College life started with its own set of challenges, but I was ready for them. I got an increased scholarship, which meant I didn't have to lean on Dad for money. That independence felt good, really good. I even managed to snag a part-time job at the college library. One evening, during one of our weekly phone calls, I told Dad about the job. He laughed, his voice warm and teasing over the phone. "Look at that, my daughter's keeping me afloat now." I chuckled, rolling my eyes even though he couldn't see. "Yeah, right, Dad. Just trying to follow in your footsteps without stepping on your toes." College wasn't just about work, I made sure to learn something from every class, every lecture. And then came the internship opportunity at a local financial company. The internship was intense. I was thrown into the deep end, analyzing market trends, preparing reports, and sometimes, handling clients under supervision. My boss, Mr. Henley, was a tough nut to crack but fair. He didn't hand out compliments easily, so when he told me, "You've got a knack for this, Carly. Keep at it," it meant the world. As my college years wrapped up, I didn't just leave with a diploma, I left with a job offer from the financial company where I interned. It was more than I could have hoped for. I found a small apartment near work, and settled into a rhythm. Dad was over the moon when I told him. "That's my girl, making waves," he'd said on the phone, and I could practically hear his grin. A couple of years into my job, I was climbing the ladder, making a name for myself in the firm. It was at a party thrown by one of my former classmates that I met Arnie. He was funny, smart, and had a kindness in his eyes that drew me in. We started dating, and it wasn't long before I felt like he should meet Dad. The day came, and I was a bundle of nerves. We drove to Dad's place, Arnie with a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey in hand as a peace offering. Dad opened the door, saw Arnie, and the first thing he said was, "So, you're the young man making my daughter smile like that?" Arnie grinned, handing over the whiskey. "I'm trying my best, sir." They hit it off, talking about baseball, the whiskey, and occasionally embarrassing me with tales of my less graceful moments. Seeing them together, getting along, meant more than I could say. Now at 28, with a career on the rise and a man who cared deeply for me, life was looking up. It wasn't just about making it on my own anymore, it was about building something lasting. And for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely excited about what the future held. The day I got the call from Mom was like any other. I was in my apartment, sorting through some work documents, when my phone rang. Seeing Mom flash on the screen was enough to make my heart skip a beat. It had been years. "Carly, I need a favor," she said, without any pleasantries. "Lily is going to college in your city, and we paid her tuition. Can she stay with you?" The request caught me off guard. Stay with me? As in, live here? Yes, it would really help us out. Plus, it could be good for you two to spend some time together, Mom pressed. I hesitated, the old feelings of being the less favored child creeping in. But I pushed them aside. "Okay, Mom. For you, I'll do it." Lily's arrival was like a whirlwind. She had 3 suitcases just for clothes and shoes, and her beauty routine took up more bathroom space than I thought possible. As days turned into weeks, her presence began to reshape my life. She was always either preparing for a party or recovering from one. Her idea of a quiet evening was coming home at 3 in the morning, tipsy and giggling on her phone. Her lifestyle was one thing, but what really strained our cohabitation was her attitude towards college and life in general. "I'm not really into the whole studying thing," she once said during breakfast. "I'm just here to have fun and maybe meet a rich husband." I choked on my coffee. "Lily, you need to take your studies seriously. Mom and Richard are paying a lot for your college." She shrugged, popping a grape into her mouth. "Whatever. I don't see why I should bother. That's like, your thing, not mine." But the real trouble started when Arnie came into the picture. He'd been over a few times since Lily moved in, and I'd noticed the way she looked at him. I didn't want to believe she'd actually try anything until one night, Arnie pulled me aside, his expression grave. "Carly, we need to talk," he said, guiding me to the balcony for privacy. "Lily's been making advances. She's been pretty explicit about what she wants. I didn't want to tell you, but..." I felt a mix of anger and embarrassment. "I'll handle it." Confronting Lily was inevitable. I found her in the kitchen, flipping through a magazine. "We need to talk about Arnie," I started, trying to keep my voice even. She looked up, her eyes cool. "Oh? What about him?" "He's my fiancé, Lily. And he told me what you've been doing. It needs to stop." Lily laughed, a sound that chilled me. "Please, Carly. Like I'd want your boring finance guy. But if I did, I could have him. I get what I want." That was the last straw. "You need to find somewhere else to live, Lily. I can't have you disrespecting me and my relationship under my own roof." Within an hour of her shameful leaving, Mom called. "How dare you kick your sister out? You always were a difficult child, Carly. I should have known better than to trust you with your sister," Mom hissed, before hanging up. Sitting alone in my suddenly quiet apartment, I realized that no matter how hard I tried, it might never be enough for them. But as I looked around, I knew I had to protect my peace, my life, and my future with Arnie, even if it meant distancing myself from the family chaos once again. It had been 2 years since the fallout with Lily and the harsh words with Mom. My life had found a smoother rhythm, one filled with work achievements and quiet moments with Arnie. That peace was briefly interrupted when I heard about Lily through the grapevine. She had dropped out of college and was getting married to some rich guy she met. Curiosity and a sliver of familial duty nudged me to pick up the phone and call home to offer congratulations. It was Mom who answered, her voice as chilly as ever. "Hi, Mom. I heard about Lily. I just wanted to say congratulations," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Oh, is that so? Well, don't bother. We're not waiting for you at the wedding. It's for rich people, not beggars," she spat out harshly. The words stung more than I expected. "I see. Well, I wish her happiness all the same," I managed before ending the call. the familiar hurt settling in my stomach. Later, I learned they spared no expense for Lily's wedding. Lavish decorations, expensive attire, and even live singers, the works. It was all over social media, a spectacle for all to see. Fast forward 2 more years, and life brought its own surprises. Arnie, with his gentle smile and eyes full of love, proposed. It was simple, but perfect. No fancy backdrop, just us and the sincerity of our bond. Of course, I said yes. Excited, I called Dad first. Dad, Arnie proposed. We're getting married. Really? That's wonderful, Pumpkin. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Dad's voice boomed through the phone, filled with genuine happiness. Emboldened by his enthusiasm, I made a decision I knew might end in disappointment. I called Mom to invite her to the wedding. Mom, I'm getting married. I would like you to come, I said, each word weighed with a mix of hope and apprehension. There was a pause, then a cold laugh. To your wedding? With that man of yours? No, thank you. I don't mingle with losers. On the wedding day, everything was simple yet beautiful, the decorations minimal but elegant, the guest list small but heartfelt. Dad arrived early, beaming with pride. You look beautiful, Carly, Dad said as he took my arm to walk me down the aisle. Thanks, Dad. I'm glad you're here, I replied, squeezing his arm, the emotions of the day catching up to me. As we walked, I felt the weight of the past challenges lift. Here was a man who had never once made me feel less than loved, walking me toward a future with a man who cherished me just as deeply. The ceremony was everything I could have hoped for. Arnie's vows were heartfelt, and mine were a promise of commitment and love, witnessed by our closest friends and family. There were no grand gestures, just the pure, simple affirmation of our bond. Life had a way of coming full circle in the most unexpected ways. Just when Arnie and I were celebrating the news of our pregnancy, reveling in our little bubble of impending joy, my phone rang. The screen flashed Mom, a name that now brought more tension than warmth. Carly, Mom's voice came through the line, sharp and urgent. We need your help. What's wrong? I asked, despite a sinking feeling in my gut. It's serious. We've lost everything. The house is mortgaged to the hilt, Richard's business has tanked, and, well, Lily's marriage didn't pan out either. What happened with Lily? I found myself asking before I could stop. She made some mistakes. Her husband has thrown her out, and he's demanding money for her cheating, Mom explained, each word laced with a mixture of anger and desperation. We have nowhere to go, Carly. We need to stay with you, just until we sort things out. The request hit me like a ton of bricks. After years of minimal contact and outright rejections, this was too much. Mom, I don't think that's possible. What do you mean it's not possible? You owe us, Carly. After all, we are your family, she pressed, her voice hardening. Oh you? Mom, remember how you pushed me out when you thought I was too much to handle? How you never wanted me around unless it suited you? I replied, my own anger rising. That was different, Carly. This is serious. We are talking about being on the streets here, she countered sharply. You made your choices, Mom, and I've made mine. I have my own family to think about now, I said firmly. There was a pause, a heavy silence that filled the space between my resolve and her disbelief. You ungrateful child. I'll sue you. I'll get what's owed to me. I couldn't help but laugh, despite the seriousness of her threat. Sue me for what, Mom? Taking care of myself? Dad was my guardian when you pushed me out, remember? You have no legal hold over me. I hung up, heart racing. It was a confrontation I had always dreaded, yet now that it was over, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had stood my ground, protected my boundaries, and most importantly, I was protecting the little life growing inside me. Arnie came into the room, his face etched with concern. Everything okay, babe? I took a deep breath, wrapping my arms around him. It will be. We're going to be okay, all three of us. He hugged me back, his presence a reassuring fortress against the chaos of my family. We'll handle whatever comes, together. This little one has the best, Mom. As we stood there, I felt the first fluttering movements of our baby, a gentle reminder of the new life we were about to welcome. It was a poignant moment, filled with the promise of new beginnings and the affirmation that some family cycles were meant to be broken.